What's up, everyone? It's Mike Andes, Business Bootcamp Podcast, Landscape Business Course, a whole bunch of other things. But today we are doing Q&A while everyone is coming in live. Feel free to post your comments and questions in the comment section. Until then, let me go show you a couple things while everyone's hopping on. It is fall season. Lots of property cleanups this time of year, leaf cleanups. If you haven't already, go to lawncaremedia.com. You got door hangers for leaf season. We got the flyers, my personal favorite, for leaf season. We also have postcards, which are every door direct mail ready with the postcard stamp and everything. So check that out. Also, the instant quote door hanger, again, right here, where you can actually, if you're doing door hangers while you're walking up the house, you can put exactly what it includes, like leaf cleanup, and put the price. Put the notes on there. All they have to do is take a picture of this, send it to you, and you got yourself a job. You don't have to ever go back for an estimate. So check that out, lawncaremedia.com. Also, we are going into the snow season. So we got door hangers. We got postcards. Again, all EDDM ready. Flyers. Lawncaremedia.com. Check it out. You get access to the Photoshop files as well as the JPEGs. So if you're more savvy and want to actually change little tiny things, you got the Photoshop files. Also, light installation. This is just one of them, but there's a whole bunch of them as well. So if you do light installation, rentals, installations, teardowns, check it out, lawncaremedia.com, and it is extremely helpful. All right, let's go ahead and jump into some Q&A. We got a whole bunch of people hopping in here. Let me just go ahead and throw this up just for fun. There we go. All right, comments. Welcome, Vincent. Whoa, Jeff, James, Aiden, First String Lawn Care, Benjamin, John Garrettson. Let's go, Brandon. Okay, hey, Mike from Alberta, Canada. What's your best lawnmower that you have? The best lawnmower I've ever had. Honestly, I really like Gravely 148s and 152s because their price, and in our market, our dealer is really good for Gravely. So we just actually got Gravely as a preferred vendor for Augusta Lawn Care. So really happy about that. We get 22% off MSRP being a part of Augusta. All right, what's some good ideas for recurring fall winter services in Texas? Want to profit in fall rather than feel like I'm chasing leads. Yeah, so the bottom line is going to come down to the fact that if you're getting a lot of leads coming in, you're going to keep your prices high. Now, if you're just trying to fill work, put work on the schedule, that's when typically you're going to reduce your margins just to be able to close more jobs and fill up your calendar. So the goal here is, if you want to create recurring work, is how do you get your existing mowing customers to convert into recurring cleanups, i.e. winter services. So what we do is we say, hey, look, we're finishing up mowing. We're going to go directly into winter services. And here are the things we're going to be doing on your property instead of mowing. And so that's what I'd be trying to do. And I'd be trying to make sure that you're very clear about the fact that you're not going to do leaf cleanup every time you come. You're going to spend the same amount of time as you would mowing. You're going to now spend on picking up branches, picking up leaves, pulling weeds out of the beds, and you're getting all those things done each time that you come in. And hopefully you can keep that on a recurring basis with the customer, so that way it is not a one-off jobs. What are some good tips to prepare for rapid growth? I think the biggest thing would be obviously investing in your people. I was talking to someone yesterday, and they this past year have been struggling. It's been their first year. They have a few employees, some part-timers, so some that are good, some that are bad. And I was honest with them. I'm like, look, the number one thing I'm concerned about is going into next spring with one solid, full-time, dependable employee that you can build the business on. That will be the difference between doubling next year and 5xing your business. And so I truly believe that right now, as we're heading into the fall winter season, if you don't have one solid, really good person and you're wanting to grow next year, go ahead and do that now. So even like the local shop, we're hiring. Literally, we put out an ad yesterday to hire people because we know that this labor market is so bad and it's hard. Everyone's talking about that. Well, we've got to get creative. We got to come up with different ways of thinking about the problem. And so our what we're trying out right now is like, we're going to try hiring everyone that's getting laid off. Everyone that's getting laid off this time of year because everyone else is slowing down. We're going to go ahead and hire them. And I don't know what we're going to do for winter. We'll figure it out. We're going to sell winter services. We're booked out 4 or 5 weeks right now. We have like 30 or 40 estimates they said next week that we haven't got to. So the work is still coming in. We're going to keep hiring, and we're going to figure out winter services, and we're going to keep the guys busy somehow. And we're going to hire people and say, hey, look, maybe we don't have 40 hours, but if we can give you 25 or 30, we'll make sure you have a full-time position come spring. And for a lot of people, they don't mind that. So yeah, I'd say we got to get creative with the labor problem, and we can't keep moaning and groaning. Guess what? In 12 months, that's going to be the excuse for a lot of people. So let's just tackle the problem now, knowing that it's going to be the issue. Don't wait till next spring rush. I'm like, oh my word, I can't find people. Let me give you a news alert now. It's going to be really, really hard to find people next spring. Okay. It's not, it's like, well, there's not any more of the unemployment benefits. Guess what? That's not going to change anything. Next spring, it's still going to be very difficult to find people that want to work hard. So you should be doing the hard work now of finding people. And if not, implementing systems like pay for performance and profit sharing and open book management so that you hire good people and attract great people come spring rush. You've got to do that hard work now. Thoughts on the weight? I'm guessing you mean Wright autonomous mower. Very, very cool. It's still very much in beta. We talked with Ed Wright at GIE about it. And it's still one of those things where it's not like I can consistently depend 100% of the time it's going to do its job. It's still in beta. It still needs a lot of kinks ironed out of it. And until that time, I just can't throw an entry-level employee out with a $50,000 mower and say, good luck. So it's coming there, right? Like autonomy, battery operation, all that stuff is coming down the road. I think people are jumping on a little bit too soon in terms of it's the new shiny thing, when I don't want to make a business decision until it makes money. When it's a good business decision, that's when I'll be on board. Until that time, I'm going to keep testing. I'm going to keep playing with it. But I think we're 3 to 5 years out before battery powered mowers are going to be a real, not threat. I think it's going to be a good thing for our businesses, but until it's a good thing for our businesses from a number standpoint, I'm not interested. I'll keep testing it. I'll stay informed, but I'm not going to be all over. And autonomy, I think, is a good 5 to 10 years out before it's actually, from a monetarily standpoint, makes perfect sense without stretching numbers and things like that. How many locations are in Tennessee? I'm guessing you're talking about Augusta. I think there's about 2, 3 or 4. What winter services do you do in your business? So we focus on the recurring side of winter services, which is we try to upsell our mowing customers into recurring winter services. In other winter services that we do in our area, we get a lot of rain during the winter. So we can't really do anything in terms of grading, excavation, paver, patios, retaining walls. It's extremely difficult. So our biggest thing is bush trimming, really trying to push and advertise getting the debris or the leaves and the branches off of their house. We do have windstorms in our area, so that helps with picking up debris. So just smaller type services, right, that we can do. It's very difficult in our area if you are a construction company, like doing only grading, excavation, or big projects, because there's so much rain that it would be like very stop and go during the winter. Now YouTube channel has a great video about switching equipment to electric, and there's a number you can save a lot of money on maintenance and oil. Yes, I agree with that 100%. I think it makes a lot of sense for a solo operator too, that is getting one set of equipment, especially the hand trimmers, blowers perhaps. The mowers, though, from a monetary standpoint, I just cannot make sense of buying 10 of those for my crew right now. From a money standpoint, I'd have to, it would take 2 to 3 years to recoup the cost, and in 2 to 3 years, that equipment is going to be basically like the Stone Age. In 3 years, battery technology will be so far ahead of where it is now. Autonomy will be so far ahead of where it's not now. So I don't want to jump on the bandwagon too soon, pay a premium, and literally by the time that equipment is paid for itself, it's antiquated. Yeah, Jeff. So this is a good point. You could charge a premium for it being quieter. I think there is definitely something to be said about the fact that for some people, they talk about being quieter when they've never driven a 0-turn electric mower. It is quieter, but it's not a way quieter, right? So we're not talking about like this thing being purring kitten. It is purring kitten until you turn the blades on. The blades have noise. And so I think there is a misconception that it's dead quiet, an electric mower. It is when you're driving it. But when you turn the blades on, it's probably 70 to 80% the same sound as a gas-powered mower. What age do you hire at? We typically wait till someone's 18. It's just usually inconsistent before that. What do you think of the large companies that hire labor from other countries? I think it's a massive, what's the word? It's a dependency that they have. It's a vulnerability. There you go. A vulnerability. And over the past 5 to 6 years, a lot of these big companies have had to pivot away from the HTB program and hiring outside of the United States just because it's so inconsistent. And then with the pandemic last year, like even more so, it's just the number of visas can change on a dime, and you do not want to have that vulnerability. And so a lot of them had to turn to subcontracting because their visas were cut short last minute the past few years. How do you recommend a small lawn care maintenance company to hire a CPA in December to go over financials on year one under $40,000 revenue? I don't think you need a CPA. I think you need a bookkeeper. Alexandro, by the way, you met with us at GIE. Liz is trying to get a hold of you, so email me. She's been trying to get a hold of you, she said, and she can't get through. She can't find an email that's working. So email me, landscapebusinesscourse@gmail.com, please. But in terms of the CPA, you do not need a CPA to put together your financials if you're especially at 40K in revenue. You really need a CPA to look over the financials at the end of the year and put together your taxes. And what you need throughout the year, though, is a bookkeeper. They're a lot cheaper than a CPA. We're going to be having a really cool announcement next week, so stay tuned for that. Something that's going to be launching next week here that will help with that. Landon Smith, what percentage of profit should I put towards a future mowing setup versus marketing? Wanting to grow fast, so I need to market to get jobs, but don't want to get stuck with no money for my second setup. I'm going to take this away just because it's taking so much of my space away. So good question. I think the debate is, okay, so should I put money into getting a mowing setup versus marketing? The bottom line is, what I would recommend doing is extending your existing setups and pulling them as much as possible, which means putting 2 or 3 people potentially on that crew. And then it's a natural cadence to hop into another truck. So it's being used to its max. Like, it's not being used 1 or 2 days a week for the first few months. It should be used a lot from day one. And to do that, you're going to staff up in each crew. So you might have 2 or 3 people in a truck mowing all day long. They're not have a full day. Well, then now when you buy the next truck, you can pull 1 or 2 people into that truck, and immediately it has a full day's worth of work. What I would say, though, in terms of marketing versus that is, just know that if you have leads pouring in and you needed equipment, you could potentially go get a loan on equipment. It's very easy, 0%, 3 years on Sheffield Financial, or most dealers have a pretty good program for financing. Now, the truck side of things is a little more difficult because it's going to be a $10,000, $15,000 purchase, and you might not be able to get financing. So it's everyone's case is a little bit different. But what I would say is $5,000 spent on marketing. I would rather do this. I would rather spend that $5,000 in marketing and buy a $15,000 truck than spend $20,000 on a truck. All right. I just believe that's the better move for the business. And especially if you're trying to grow fast, because your business doesn't grow more in terms of new leads and sales. Demand doesn't change. There's a better word. Demand doesn't change by getting another truck. It only increases your supply. And if you look at the supply and demand curve, you want demand. Demand is the objective. Like right now, for example, when I'm looking at companies on the stock exchange and like companies like Apple, they just reported, and they had a down quarter because of supply chain constraints. And when people look at that, people come out of the stock, or it's like, oh, it's not as good. They didn't hit their sales numbers. But if you look a little bit deeper, it's not that demand has changed. It's not that people don't want their products. It's the fact that they can't get the products. They can't get the supply to them. I would much rather have a demand, way too much demand and not enough supply, like Apple has right now, then they have a ton of iPhones but they can't sell them. That's a problem. So I would much rather focus on creating demand, i.e. marketing, than trying to focus on, I have all these trucks and equipment ready to go. Who cares? That's easy. Figuring out supply is easier than figuring out demand. In the next 12 to 24 months, we will figure out supply and all these supply chain issues. You cannot create an Apple in 1 or 2 years. Right? That demand, that brand awareness comes through a lot of marketing, a lot of advertising, and building a brand. That's what you want to focus on if you want to build a really successful company. Can P4P work for a solo operator with one helper? Yes, it can. It's not going to be as much of an impact, obviously. And the big thing that you want to be measuring is, does the 10 minutes it takes me every day to run P4P going to outweigh the benefits that I get with having an employee? Because if I have one helper with me all day long as an owner, they're going to be working hard all day long. I don't really need to have a system to manage their efficiencies. It's as soon as they're working without me, or there's a second employee, or there's another truck, that's when P4P is really going to move the needle for your business. So if I had one helper, I probably wouldn't worry about P4P. Now, if you know you're going to grow, definitely implement P4P so it's an easy transition as you do get a second, third, fourth employee, usually during their busiest time of year when you're not going to have time to implement P4P. Everyone listening to this, all 55 people listening to this is the time to make changes on your business. The next 4 months, next 3-4 months, this is the time to make changes in your business. That's why we have Landscape Summit in January, because we don't have mowing. We don't have spring rush. We don't have craziness happening, and there's labor shortages and all the rest of it. Like, the next 3 to 4 months is when you make the change to P4P. You might have heard me talk about it for the past 3-4 years. You might have been like, oh, it's a good concept. This is the time to dig in and get it done. All right. This is the time to open up your book. This is the time to get your financials correct. This is the time to do everything you've been thinking that you should be doing and hearing me talk about all year long. And your excuse has been, I'm too busy. I'm okay with that. I get that. I understand that. But now, next 3 to 4 months, perhaps maybe it's January, February for you. If you have a slower season coming up, this is the time to get stuff done. And if P4P for you is what you need to get done this winter, I encourage you to do the hard work and make that change. Farmstead Gardening. How can I grow my lawn care business when I have a full-time day job? When should I hire someone? I would hire someone when you've either raised your prices significantly and you can easily cover their wages, or I would hire someone when you have so much work coming in that you can't get to it on a part-time basis, right? So, and then obviously, then the next step would be the next catalyst to growth is you going full-time. Tesla outdoor power equipment. Let's go. How much should I spend on ads before spring to get a full schedule for mowing? So typically, your best dollar spent on marketing, your best bang for your buck is going to typically be 2 to 8 weeks after the grass has started to grow. Now, I am going to start marketing 2 weeks before the grass starts to grow, because I want to get an edge on that, right? So I know that usually for example, we start mowing March 1st, but if we were advertising, we would start advertising mid-February, knowing that those first 2 weeks of February, we're not going to get a great customer acquisition cost because the grass is not growing. There is no pain for the customer. When there's pain for the customer, it's easier to get them past the buying decision, and it's easier to get a premium price. So when we are marketing, we're going to usually start marketing a couple weeks before, knowing that our customer acquisition cost is not ideal. But during the winter months, it's almost impossible to sell people on mowing. You're going to get some. We always get some people, setting up mowing services because they move to a new house and they're like, hey, we got to get set up for spring. But your customer acquisition cost is going to be higher, and it's going to be a lot harder to get people to think about grass growing when there's either snow or ice out on the lawn. Like, it's difficult for customers to think that far ahead. Our farm used Gravely 2-wheel tractors, and I love them. Let's go. In your chart of accounts, do you have subcontracts under income for maintenance and landscape installs? What % of your business is maintenance versus landscape installs? Yes. So in your chart of accounts for income, you should have subcontracted income, because you're also going to have an expense for subcontractors. And that way you know what is direct cost, etc. But anyways, what % of business is maintenance versus landscape installs? Usually we're around 50-50, maybe 60% maintenance, 40% installs. And that's why everyone's like, you only do maintenance, you only do lawn care. No, we actually do a lot of our stuff is project-based work from a revenue standpoint. And then there's some of our locations with Augusta that do only mowing. Literally 99.9% of their income is from mowing. And then we have others that do tree work and hardscaping and drainage and tractor work. So yeah. Best online marketing, Google, Facebook for growing lawn mowing. You know what is really interesting? I have seen a massive shift in the past 6 months from Facebook to Google. We've been tracking it a bunch. I'm going to talk a lot about it at Landscape Summit and kind of what I see on the horizon. But man, Google ads are coming back in terms of customer acquisition cost. I have to say, I was just looking at some of our metrics this morning across our system. there's some locations at 20, 30 cents a click, but like the average around like 60, 70 cents. I haven't seen that in years. So it's been really cool. I'm going to talk a lot about Landscape Summit, some of the things that we're doing, but Facebook has been definitely underperforming. Since they made the changes on iOS 14, the targeting is just not there. The customer acquisition cost has gone through the roof. The lead cost per lead's gone up. So just not as great. But hey, Facebook will figure it out because they're entering the metaverse. So best commercial walk behind for a new business. Honestly, not the right person to ask that question. We don't use walk behinds. We either do stand-ons or sit-downs. Cybertruck, let's go. I'm going full-time in the spring with my lawn care business. Do you suggest staying solo the first year, then hire the second year? Really depends on your goals. If you're wanting to grow really quickly and you have money, then you can get a second truck, a couple employees, multiple setups right from day one. If you are cash strapped, you don't have a lot of money to spend on the business, then I would focus on going solo, build out your schedule, fill it up, and then the second year, always your second spring rush is the time to leap. Okay? It's going to be the least cash intensive. Because your first year, typically, you're just trying to get started. You're figuring things out. Your close ratio isn't as good. You'll figure that stuff out. And then spring rush, the second year is when we see consistently people take off. Like when franchisees join, usually they'll get somewhere between 10 and 40,000 a month in their first year, just somewhere in between that range. It's the second spring rush where they'll just take off and they'll do between 30 and 80. We just see that consistently. As a new business, how do you go about gaining clients? I would start with these door hangers, right? Honestly, like this time of year, we got the instant quote door hanger. We actually put the price when you're doing door hanging. We got the flyers. Again, we got the postcards, more door hangers. So I'd be starting with this stuff. Go to lawncaremedia.com and get all these templates. And if you want to rip off the templates, that's fine. Just look at the picture and rip it off. Make it up on Photoshop. I promise you, the time to rip them off will take a lot longer than the cost it is to buy them. So, but feel free if you want to. Just copy them. One thing I'm doing is we get guys that work for us just for snow, and we get them for spring because they like work year-round. When it doesn't snow, we find something for people to do. Yes. And they'll stay with you year-round. Correct. The challenging part for a lot of people is if you don't have snow. But like in our area where it does freeze, but it doesn't snow. And that's challenging because it's hard to find things for people to do. And so I would recommend is being honest with employees and be like, hey, we don't have work year round. Maybe during the winter we have 20 to 30 hours, but we will make sure you have 40 hours guaranteed from, let's say March to November, right? Whatever your months are. And a lot of people, as long as you're honest with them, they'll be okay with it. As long as they can know and expect and they can budget. And if they're like, hey, I need 40 hours, then say, okay, look, you can go work for 2-3 months, find something else, maybe something inside since it's kind of miserable outside, find something else to do work for a couple months and you have a guaranteed position when you come back in the spring. Does your employees pay for their own grass when they run out or come back from a job to get more gas from the shop to do more yards? We always pay for it. We give everyone credit cards. Blades of Glory Lawn Care. What happens to my website if I start with lawn care web design, but later decide I want to end the service? Is there any way for me ever to own the website your team created for my business? No. So the design part is ours. That's what part of the subscription service is. You would own the domain though. Yes. So any of the domain, that's why we recommend you buy the domain from like GoDaddy or HostGator or something like that. And then come to lawn care web design. We'll build the design, but the subscription model only works if we control the design. So if you ever leave the service, then you keep the website, you keep the domain, but the actual design is ours. And so that's how the subscription system works. That's why we don't have to pay. You don't have to charge the $5 or $10,000 that costs us to build your site. We don't have to charge that up front because we expect to be able to keep someone for a long term. And that's why you should always be updating your website and utilizing the service. Send them pictures and video, things like that. Which, by the way, good point. If right now you're doing leaf cleanup or you're getting fall cleanup and all the rest of it, try to make sure that's on your website. Add a banner. We're about to add a banner for all of our franchisees that do snow service, adding a banner at the very top that's like light blue that says now accepting snow service clients, whatever it says. But you should be doing that. And that's why with Lawn Care Web Design, we have the unlimited design changes. Just literally send us an email and within a few days, we can get that up for you. Justin, what's your thoughts on how to raise prices? We are running about $850,000 in business. That is 75% maintenance. Running our numbers, it's going to be a shock to some due to inflation. then you should absolutely raise your prices. It's not going to be a shock. Everyone's prices are going up right now. If you've gone to a car lot right now, it's ridiculous. I was going to buy a new car this year. It was one of my bucket list items. And then I got to the Honda dealership. I didn't want anything fancy. I just wanted a Honda Civic, right? And I go to this place, and sticker price is $25,000. I'm like, oh, you know what? I can handle that, no problem. And I'm like, okay, with tax and everything, it's probably like $27,000, And I'm like, you know what? I know there's a supply chain shortage or supply chain issues, and there's a shortage of everything with this whole chip thing. So I know I'm not gonna be able to bargain, haggle on this thing. There's hardly any cars on the lot. And so day of, I have money ready to go. I'm about to go to the dealership, and they call me. I'm like, hey, by the way, there's gonna be a $2,000 extra charge just because we're so low on inventory. We're just charging $2,000 on all the cars. And it just didn't sit well with me. The fact that I was gonna pay $29,000, almost $30,000 with taxes and everything for a Honda Civic. I was like, no, thank you. I could go get a Tesla for $40,000. Why would I do that? So the cost of everything is going up. That same car, I probably could have haggled and got down to $23,000 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm going to wait. I'm going to stick with my little Honda that keeps burning engine oil like crazy. I'm going to keep using that bad boy, paying $70 for oil changes because it's such high mileage, 267,000 or whatever it is. It's crazy. But I'm going to stick with it because I'm not going to pay these high inflated prices. But that being said, everything is going up in price. Fuel is going up. Labor is going up. You need to be raising your prices. And I just guarantee you, if you raise your prices by $5 to $10 a cut, you would keep 90 to 95% of your customers. When you start raising your per cut price by more than $10, that's when people start to leave, right? Because if I'm charging $40 per cut and I raise that to $60, that's a 50% increase. That's a lot. It's $20 per cut more. You're going to lose maybe 25% of your customers in that scenario. Maybe more if you're a smaller business and if you have less time. Now, your business, it looks like you have probably years or customers have been with you for years. In that scenario, I really believe you could raise all of your prices almost blindly, $10 a cut, and you would lose less than 5% of your customers because they've been with you for so long. They know that if they go try to find another contractor right now, good luck trying to find somebody. Good luck trying to find someone in the spring rush, especially. So let's go, Kevin. Joker, Mike, should I find enough work for lawn mowing before finding the guys? How can I pay guys with not enough work if I want to start a second crew and mowing route? Yeah, fill up your schedule first. Get the work first. Get the demand first, then figure out supply. Everyone always jumps into supply, get more trucks, get more equipment, get employees, and then like, oh, I need demand. And I need to go spend money to get that demand. So get that first, get an overwhelming amount of demand. And that's when you're like, well, then I'll be in a bad spot because I got to go find an employee. Well, at that time, then you'll be able to afford an employee and you'll be able to afford more per hour to give them potentially because you have the demand, you have the work ready to go. If you were going to be a solo operator with one helper, what would your business model look like? It would look like the solo operator model for Augusta Lawn Care, which is I want as much of my time being spent out in the field mowing and none of it being spent on sending estimates, and answering my phone and figuring out that stuff and building a website and designing stuff, right? I want to focus on getting work done. When you are a solo operator and maybe have one or two helpers, the business becomes more profitable the more time your percentage of your day is spent in the field working. So I'd be trying to delegate as much of the phone calls, like get a virtual person, even if you're not part of Augusta and you can't use Command Center, get someone virtual to answer the phones. You don't have a lot of phone calls coming in. Our first year franchisees for answering calls is like usually $300 to $600 a month. And that's as they're trying to grow their business. It's not a lot compared to your time as the owner, operator in the field, actually trying to pick up phone calls all day long and answer customer service complaints and stuff and sending out estimates. That's not the best use of your time. I'd be focused on getting more work done because you can make $70, $80 an hour out in the field working. You do not want to be distracted with sending emails, estimates, and phone calls. Don't do it. So that would be my recommendation. And then obviously with the solo operator model at Augusta Lawn Care, our goal is to take off things like your website design and, marketing, creating stuff like this, your emails your estimating and all that stuff off your plate too, so you can focus on just making more money and then filling your schedule and then raising prices. Fill capacity, raise prices. That is the key unlock to creating a successful service business. Fill capacity, raise prices. And if you don't want to increase capacity, that's fine. If you want to keep growing, i.e. hiring more people, buying more trucks, expanding, that's fine. What you're doing is expanding capacity, but eventually you've got to get to the point where you fill capacity and you raise prices. That's the moment when you start making money. All right. So everyone in their first year, second year, potentially going to your third year and you're growing, what you're doing usually is extending capacity. As soon as you stop extending capacity and fill it and then raise prices, that is the time when you make profit in this business. Okay. Cool. I am 12. Can I get more customers? Yes, you can. Go door to door, get some door hangers, talk to people. Am I bullish on Bitcoin? I am. I think it'll be at 80 to 100,000 within the next, I don't know, 3 to 6 months. But I'm not like hugely bullish on it in terms of a bunch of my portfolio. Less than 6% of my portfolio is in crypto. All right, should take it back. It's 6%, not less than. Wonder Guerrero, hey Mike, looking forward to the summit. Do you think the $1,400 per week from Pink Collars is worth it, or should I keep an office manager? I don't like the $1,400. So Pink Collars, by the way, so what he's talking about is a virtual office assistant. They help you. You pay $1,400 per week, and they take care of your email and your phone calls and things like that. It's only going to be worth it if you have a bigger business. So if you're doing like $1 million in revenue, that's when it makes sense. I don't like this $1,400 per week though, because when you slow down, you're still paying the $1,400 per week. That's why I like the minute model, is because if I slow down to almost nothing or I take a week off, I don't have to pay anything. And I'd much rather have my office staff and my office admin costs be variable costs, which the more I work, the more I have to pay. And the less I work, the less I pay. That way, it's always a percentage of whatever revenue. It will more identify the trajectory of how much revenue I'm doing or how much I'm growing, and not just a flat fixed cost. I don't like fixed costs. Fixed costs are bad. That's overhead. I don't want overhead. The only thing I want fixed is my labor expense on P4P, which, by the way, is still considered a variable expense, because the more work I make, the more jobs I have, technically, the more I'm still paying out. So it's still considered a variable cost. I'm just trying to make it a fixed percentage. But overall, when it comes to most long-term businesses that I see go out of business, the biggest reason is they grow pretty big and then their fixed expenses get too high. They have too many people in the office. They have a big rent expense on an office building. They have a mortgage now on land. They have equipment loans. They have estimators and people that are overhead running around that don't need to be office managers, project managers, that are overhead, not producing revenue. Biggest thing I don't like. So I don't like adding overhead. I don't like adding fixed expenses like a set amount per month. It scares me. Should you charge per push per storm, or a set seasonal price for snow removal? First winter offer snow removal and have quoted all my customers on a per push basis. Pros and cons. There's a big conversation. I'll try to make a video on this later on. Every area is a little bit different, because if you, for example, in our area, we get like 1 or 2 snowfalls a year. We're on a per push basis, right? Simply due to the fact that if we try to sell people on like a year-long contract, or like, hey, we'll come push up to 20 times all winter, no one would buy in our area. Not a single person is thinking about snow removal in our area in August and September. They think about it the day it snows. So just because it's so inconsistent, right? So if you're in an area though, like in Ontario, our franchisee there does the whole year. I think Michigan, they might be doing it. A couple areas where you're going to sell someone, hey, give me $800 right now, and up to 15 times I'll come and push snow. That makes a lot more sense in areas where people plan for it. They know that snow is coming. Are yard signs better than ads starting out? I wouldn't say better. I think what you're looking at is cash versus time, right? You either have cash or you have time. If you have a lot of money, probably better to spend money on digital ads, because it scales. It's a lot faster. If you don't have a lot of money, you can get yard signs for a couple $100. You can get them all over, your neighborhood. So I think if you have less time than cash, then you're going to spend money on ads. If you have more time than cash, you're going to do things like door hangers, yard signs, etc. How do you estimate leaf cleanups? That is the question. Maybe I'll do a video on this specifically, how to estimate leaf cleanups. I know it's tough. especially if you're trying to do recurring services. It's easier usually to be like, okay, if I do a leaf cleanup today, what's the price going to be? Well, you might give them a price, and then you come up a week later after a windstorm, and it's twice as many leaves on the ground. And it also depends if it's wet versus if it's dry. Because if it's dry and it was windy the day before, you might not have hardly any leaves to clean up. So I know there's a lot of variables. What I always recommend is trying to get people set on like a monthly or bi-weekly basis where you're going to come do leaf cleanups throughout the winter season and throughout, October, November, December, January. That's ideal because you can get recurring revenue, as well as there's going to be times where it takes a little bit longer, times it takes a little bit less, but over the course of those 4 months, usually you'll average out. That usually takes a little more time in estimating to be able to know and look at trees when there's leaves in the tree and kind of figure out how long it's going to take when they're on the ground. Again, it's hard to determine because if it rains the day before and you're now picking up wet leaves, it's going to take you twice as long as if it was been dry for the past week. And then there was a windstorm that came through and most leaves are now off the property. So, and also like things like fences will keep leaves from moving around. Thank you to all 80 of you that are on here. I really appreciate it. I'd appreciate a like, hit me a like. I'd appreciate that. Brandon Miller, our marketing company has halted Google ads for us. We market lawn mowing huge for 8 weeks in the spring. We only get 1 or 2 leads. We pay around, whoa, that's a lot. That's a lot. $1,000 for 1 or 2 leads. That's not good. I have to get more information on that. Brandon Gooden, what's the best 34-inch in lawn? I do not know. I'm just not that good at that stuff. Well, that's a big question. Almost all retail warehouse companies have raised their starting pay to around, look at me, hide here. Almost all retail warehouse companies have raised their starting pay to around $16 to $20 per hour. Do you think a mowing crew should be around that pay or make more than that? Mowing is harder work than typical warehouse work. I'm curious if my wages should be raised or stay at $16 to $18 an hour for next year. They are cutting around 16 to 20 yards a day with 2 guys, average of $45 a yard. Yeah, so obviously this is why we need to raise our prices right now, is so that we can accommodate higher wages. That being said, this is why P for P is so important, so that as you raise your prices, they're making a percentage of the revenue that you're getting. So by raising prices, we're kind of giving our guys a bonus or like a raise. So we don't do raises, but because we're giving a percentage of labor revenue, they want us to raise prices because that means they're getting a percentage of all that money. So that's kind of how we keep it, marked with inflation. We don't change our base pay, but we do change the prices to the customer, which means the P for P is going to go up, or the performance dollars, I should say. So, this is the problem in our industry right now. Back in the day, manufacturing, warehouse type jobs like Amazon, fulfillment, etc., you were looking at $12 to $13, $14 an hour, right? Maybe with some benefits. And then we could usually accommodate $16, $17, $18 per hour. And so people had to determine either A, do I work in an air-conditioned facility and make a little bit less, or work outside doing lawn care and landscaping and make a few dollars more. It really came down to their financial situation. Now, the problem is it's not like that. They can make $18 to $20 an hour in an air-conditioned facility doing this all day long, or they can go out, work outside in the blazing heat, the freezing cold, and make, that 16, 17, 18 per hour. So yes, we have to be able to pay more. And I'm not a big fan of just raising my hourly rate. I'd rather have pay for performance where they're getting a percentage of the labor revenue so that I know, okay, I need to give my guys a raise. We did this a year ago, right? We raised all the prices, not because we needed to make more money, because we need to give the crew a raise. We need to improve the hourly rate that they were all getting. So what do? We raise price to the customer. That way the profits in the business were staying consistent, and then the employees were making more money, right? And so I think last week, $22 per hour is about our average at a local shop right now, which is low because it's raining, it's horrible weather. But $22 per hour last week was the average. And it was like 24, 25 during the drier season. We get a lot of rain. So when it starts to rain really bad, it's tough work, slows things down. But even last week, it was right under $22 an hour average for field workers. And then we're giving health benefits starting in January. We do profit sharing. They do quarterly bonuses for that. So they get 2 weeks paid time off. So you're just trying to get creative. And yes, there's cost to that. And that means you got to raise your prices. Does your company web design build window cleaning and pressure washing websites? Pavlo, not our lawn care one, but go to homeservicewebdesign.com and we do. So we have the lawn care and landscaping one. all for the green industry. And we also have all home service design, all home services, so like contractors, plumbers, window cleaning, and pressure washing would fall great under that. So just check out homeservicewebdesign.com. Charles, who do you get the flyers and hangers from? These are from me. See, look at this. This is my face right here. That's me. Okay. Yeah. lawncaremedia.com. We design them in-house. Okay. Nashville, Tennessee. Hey, Mike, many thanks for your top quality videos. I run a landscaping company here in Germany. Lawn care in the US is really different from here. Small lawns, lots of hedge and bush trimming. Yes. I've been to Germany 2 or 3 times. And yes, lots of small properties. Augusta would do great in Germany. It would do fantastic. The model would be wonderful, but we are not set up for it, so don't ask. Why not get a Tesla? I know, Quinn, right? I actually have a supercharging station right outside the office in the parking lot, which would be fantastic. But, you know, I still can't, you know what, to be perfectly honest, I still can't make sense of it driving up in a gravel yard. I don't like that, to be perfectly honest. Maybe I'm just insecure. Maybe I'm just immature. But like rolling up in a Tesla when it's pouring down rain and I'm going to be at an office meeting and then bounce and the crew's got to go work out in the field. I don't feel that's right. I don't know. I'll maybe get over it one day. But for now, I still feel like it's wrong. I don't like that perception. I don't like that mentality of like the boss makes all this money and it's all flashy with his money and then doesn't put it into the company, doesn't invest it back in. So like I would rather spend the Tesla money on like health benefits and things like that. So that's just my point of view. Again, I'll get over it one day. To fill my 2016 F350 is $125 minimum. Hey there, buddy. Thank you. Thank you. Mike, do you believe lead employees or managers should be kept on all year round and try to break even for the remainder of the employees so they can have work year round? Yeah, it really depends on your situation. I don't like breaking even. I hate that word. I like making profit. We usually try to keep our longest tenured and more manager type employees throughout the winter. And then we make sure all of the other employees have a position somewhere else, or they have a guaranteed position to come back in the spring. And so we work with each of them individually, kind of each of their scenarios and their situations. But I do not like the thought of I'm going to spend a bunch of money trying to keep someone on during the winter. And I know I'm going to lose money on it. I don't like that mentality. They have plenty of other options to work. If they like lawn care, they like landscaping, they'll come back in the spring. If you can offer more money on P4P, they will come back to you in the spring. If they can go make $18 an hour at Macy's for the next few months as the holiday season approaches, or at Amazon, for example, they'll come back to you if you can offer them 22, 23 on P4P and with health benefits and all the rest, like whatever you're trying to do, right? So just focus on making a profit if you can. Like if we can make a profit, $1 a profit throughout the winter months, I'm happy. And usually it's a lot better than that. So that's what I'd be trying to do. I was always so involved emotionally. Like I got to give everyone full-time hours. And I started realizing like, oh, they don't really care because they have so many options to go other work. And they'd rather do the other work in the winter months when it's miserable to work outside. Ezra, hey, Mike, the value you give out for free is insane. On estimates, do you include terms and conditions? How should I go about making terms and conditions? I wouldn't make it like super long. I've seen some people on their mowing estimates, it's like a page of fine print. Look, this is not a mortgage. We're not signing life insurance. This is mowing lawns. And if you think that people are going to read that whole page of fine print, you've lost your mind, because people sign away their lives on liability and for flying helicopters and jumping out of airplanes, and they don't even read the fine print. Do you really think they're going to read the fine print on your lawn care contract? Newsflash, they're not going to do it. So we do have 3 to 4 lines of kind of terms and conditions on our estimates, but I would just pick the top few if you want people to actually read them. If you're going to create a paragraph even of a whole bunch of fine print of like terms and conditions, they're not going to read it. And you're just going to be arguing with them 6 months later saying it was in the terms and did you read the terms and conditions? And like, that just, as a customer, I hate when people say that. It's like, look, seriously, do you think anybody reads the terms and conditions? It was 15,000 pages and I have to scroll to the bottom of it. So keep it mode. Thoughts on the banning of gas equipment, especially blowers, direction you're planning on going? I'm not impressed with the battery operated leaf blowers. Yeah, if you're in those markets, then I think it's a big concern. If you're not in California right now, We operate in New York, and it's horrible. We had to pay extra money because we didn't have electric equipment. I would not like that. Again, like, I want the technology and the financials of the equipment to make sense. I do not want the government subsidy or restriction being the thing that makes us all do this. I think it's crazy. It's crazy. Why are we putting more stress on Californian grid in electric when they literally have blackouts? It doesn't make sense. So anyways, what my thoughts are, when they actually make regulations though in your state, you're going to have to make adaptations, but I don't think most states are going to have those regulations for quite some time. You're going to get the Californians and the New Yorks and the Washingtons have that far in advance. Forgot to mention, we're doing about $25,000 per month. Sorry, Wonder, I totally forget what your question was. Let me scroll up here. Wander. Pink collars. That you're talking about pink collars. If you're doing $25,000 a month, I just struggle paying $1,400 a month for your office, right? Because $1,400 per week. My goodness. So that's $5,600 per month you're going to pay to an office staff, and you're doing $25,000 a month in revenue. That's a lot, right? That's a lot. I'd wait until you're doing $50,000 per month in revenue for it to make sense to where you're giving that much away to an office. Pete, how do you go about getting a paycheck as a solo owner operator of a DBA? I talked. You're going to talk to a bookkeeper. You can set up your payroll as long as you have an EIN, employer identification number. If you are a sole proprietor, you don't have an EIN, employer identification number, it doesn't really matter how you give yourself a paycheck. Like, you just do distributions because you don't actually have a W-2 at the end of the year because you're a sole proprietor. So again, talk to a CPA if you want. Talk to a bookkeeper, and big asterisks. Next week, there's going to be something being released that's going to help you with this. So, next week, just stay tuned. Hello, Mike. I just want to say, love your content. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Could you open an Augusta location in a different state than the one I live in? Yes, you can. I own Augustas personally in 3 states. Advice, Mike, or just encouragement? Spent 2 years learning and collecting equipment. Have everything, then cancer. Oh, mercy. We'll beat it. Just know I'm watching, brother. Awesome. Well, good luck to you. Cosnes, we give an initial price for leaf removal and try and sell them on weekly or biweekly service after the initial cleanup. On our quote, we have a disclaimer that protects us for the time, considering there are so many variables: fall, wind, raining, etc. Yeah, that's fine. Yep, that's fine. I think your close ratio is improved when you remove the terms and conditions or variable costs. Customers like that. Hey, here's what the price is. Here's what you're going to pay. Right. So as time goes on, you'll get better about, like, hey, what's the average? Where are we at? Because then you're arguing with customers like, well, it rained the day before, or it was windy. Like, well, it was only 4 miles an hour. It was 8 miles an hour. Like, I don't want to get in those discussions. I just want to have a set price. I don't want to be arguing with customers about how wet the leaves were, or how many leaves there were. I just want to have a set price. If you could start all over, what is something that you would have done differently from the start? Watch the video I made the other day about 7 steps to becoming a lawn care millionaire. That's what I would have done. I would have delegated and trusted people more from day one. I would have got where I got in 5 years. I could have done in 3 if I would have trusted people more, and delegated and let them do things and let them make mistakes and not be in their business all the time. Julio, hey, Mike, what's the program that you would recommend to do your invoicing? If you're just getting started, which it sounds like you are, Julio, I would recommend Lawn Pro, or I would recommend Yard Books. There you go. We don't do P4P, but whenever we raise our guys' hourly pay, our prices go up. Yeah, that's same thing, right? Well, the reason we like it is when we raise prices, it means they make pay. Like, it's a direct correlation. I understand you can technically move your hourly rates that you're paying your crew with your wages. That's one way to do it. But again, there's just some of your employees that are crushing it and others that are not. And so I'd rather the ones that are crushing it make a lot more. Invoices. Hey, Mike, shout out to you from South Africa. Let's go, man. We got people in Germany, got people from South Africa. Let's go. Currently live in North Carolina and approve the best service around, but I currently want to move to Pensacola, Florida. Do you think weekly lawn care would be a good thing, or should I do landscaping? It's really up to you. In Pensacola, Florida, you're going to have a lot of work. So it's going to really come down to your ability to do either of those well. We need another truck this winter. Any recommendations to not overpay? That's a tough one. Everything is expensive right now. It's going to be another 6 months before things get cheaper, in my opinion, with used vehicles. This chip shortage thing is lasting a lot longer because of just randomness happening of things that have just been out of the norm. When you first started Augusta, did you No. Always start with a W-2. You always want to do You always want to do W-2s if you have employees. It's the most legal way to do it. If someone's helping like on the weekend, you're solo. Hey, if you want to take the risk, pay them cash. That's fine. That's fine. If they're gonna be short term, maybe pay them just cash or something like that. Maybe you do a 1099. But if you're gonna do employees, you gotta do a W-2. You have to. You're gonna get nailed if you don't. Like if they come to your office and they show up in the morning, if they drive your trucks, if they use your equipment, if they wear your uniform, if you can tell them what time to clock in, they are a W-2 employee. Okay. If they're using their own tools, if they're using their own truck, if they show up when they want to, if they don't have to wear your uniform, then they're a 1099. Whoa, this is a big question. Hello? I have 2 questions. I am looking. This is horrible. 1 second, guys. Give me a second. Let me change this a little bit here. There's a way to make me this smaller, I think. Give me 1 second here. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. There it is. I have 2 questions. I am looking to buy a 0 turn for some larger properties for which I am carrying. I do have a 46-inch Husqvarna riding mower at this time. I do not have the money on hand, though. Do I have good credit to get a loan? So it sounds like you don't have. I do not have the money on hand, though. Not do I have good credit to get a loan. However, I know this is something that would help me grow, especially in commercial contracts. Should I just wait until I have the funds, or is there a way that I could expedite this process? Also, I currently only have 1 vehicle that recently broke down, and I don't see the rest of your question. That's not good. I don't see the rest of your question. Okay, so the basic gist is here. Hey, I don't have money. I can't get a loan. What should you do? You should go get more jobs, right? You should always increase the value to a business of increasing demand is so much greater than increasing supply, right? What I mean by that is getting another mower. Let's say the value of that mower is $7,000. You just improved the value of your business by $7,000. Theoretically, because if you were to resell it, it'd be worth less. But let's just say that there was no burn on the equity of that piece of mower. By buying that mower, I put in $7,000. I got $7,000 worth of equity in a piece of equipment, i.e., 0 change in the value of my business because cash went out. Like on a balance sheet, cash would go out and the assets would go up, right? So $7,000 negative in cash, $7,000 positive in assets. No change in the balance sheet. If I change demand in my business, i.e., more people wanting to sign up with me, more people wanting to get commercial contract, a backlog of customers wanting to work with me, if I have that, that is far more valuable than getting a piece of equipment. Because guess what? There's a thing on a balance sheet in the valuation called goodwill. And goodwill and branding is why Apple and Google and all these other companies have massive valuations because everyone knows who they are. And they have massive backlog of customers that want to keep buying from them. They don't brag on their quarterly reports about the machines that they're buying or the buildings that they're building. Those are assets. Those are cash in, cash out, right? Cash goes into the building project and asset value comes out. What they really brag about, though, is how many orders they have, their wait time, how many customers ordered the last iPhone. Those are the things that matter. Demand matters. So I'd be focusing on, if I was you, I would be focusing on going at more contracts to the point at which it makes absolutely no sense not to buy the equipment. Focus on demand, not supply. We are 100 people watching on this on a Saturday. Let's go. Justin, does your local shop have bulk fuel? What's your thoughts on having fuel on site versus fueling at your local service station? We do not have fuel on site. Mostly because we're not allowed to. In our lease, we are not allowed to. In our county, we are not allowed to. So currently, we are not allowed to. We just give the guys credit cards and they fill up at the local stations. What's the best CRM software you recommend for a $250,000 business aiming for $750,000 in 2 to 3 years, looking for as much automations and minimize office admin as possible? Time. Okay, got it. I would say Jobber until your last part about automations. The automations part at Service Autopilot are the best. If you don't enjoy learning software and you don't enjoy learning, hitting your head against the wall, probably wouldn't recommend doing it. I'd probably say Jobber for the ease of application, the ease of the user interface. But if you're looking for automations, Service Autopilot's pretty good. We're working on some other stuff too. Do you offer an online marketing service? I don't. And we probably won't for a lot of different reasons. But we offer print media at lawncaremedia.com. We do have some of the educational side of Facebook ads and Google ads and stuff in the course, landscapebusinesscourse.com. But I don't plan right now on doing online marketing. That might change down the road. Honestly, what it would come down to is if we ever started hiring very efficient or very proficient people at online marketing at Command Center, and I needed to cover their costs, that's potentially when we might do something. But for now, we don't. We don't do that. Just starting, and it seems like my close ratio is lower than I want, $50 per hour, and we'll go lower to fill the schedule. So, not sure why. What is a normal amount of time for a customer to accept an estimate? If you don't get the bulk of your estimate should be accepted within 48 hours. If a customer goes outside of 48 hours of not accepting the estimate, the close ratio dramatically drops. So that's why you want to follow up within the first 24 hours typically, because that's when they're the most warm. That's when you have the highest chance of actually making a closing on the deal. At $50 an hour, it's not like you're overpriced. What I'd be focusing on is the fact that, do you have value? Do you have a great website, uniforms, vehicles painted or decaled, a professional image when you show up, because your pricing is not too high, and if your close ratio is lower than you want, I don't know what that means, but if it's under 30%, that's typically pretty bad, especially at $50 an hour. At $50 an hour, you should be more like 50 to 70% close ratio, and I would just say try to focus on improving value, not lowering your price. Right? So improve your value by having a website, having great materials, having a business card. All of that good stuff will help a lot. Does a lawn care company require a home improvement license in your area in New York? Yes, it does. I read your book, Zero Turn. It was very informational. Thank you. Oh, cool. Very nice. I have another book coming out in January. It's going to be much, much better than Zero Turn. Much better. I almost get a little bit embarrassed when I see the books I've written, but this next one's going to be really good. Would you recommend to switch from hourly pay to fixed pay for property care? Most landscapers here do by the hour they actually worked. I think when you say fixed pay, you mean like P for P, pay for performance. Yes, I would always recommend that. We do it for all of our maintenance as well as landscaping and hardscaping. We've done it for projects that are hundreds of hours in size. It still works. Do you know a good calling service that works well with Lawn Pro? I don't know specifically someone that works directly with Lawn Pro, unfortunately. I've mentioned several in the past. There's Call Boss. There is Jill's receptionist that sent me a really cool beef jerky thing. I got to send a thank you back to them. They sent me a really nice thing the other day. And then Pink Collars was mentioned before. So you just got to find what's right for you. I like when they charge by the minute. You're usually going to be looking at $1.20 to $2 typically. If you go lower volume, it might be $2.50 or $3 per minute. But again, if you're smaller volume, you're not going to have as much higher price. But I don't know of anyone that works directly with Lawn Pro, but I would check out some of those services and see if they would be able to incorporate that. I do all my processing through Yardbook, and noticing the percentage they take around is 4 to 4.5%, which comes out to a ton of money. Is there a better solution? Yeah, so you got to realize that anything for free is not free. The reason Yardbooks is free and really cheap is because their processing fees are higher. Okay, so yes, you are paying for Yardbooks by your processing fees. Okay, so 4 to 4.5 is high. You want that more around 3% if you can get it there. And so you just got to realize anything that seems free when it comes to software is not free. They're getting you someplace else. Like Facebook is not free. They're selling your information. And when people freak out about that, it's look, where else? How else do you want to pay for it? It's free. So you're going to pay for it somehow, right? And yes, you're going to pay in the processing. And that's why as you grow, you'll grow out of Yardbooks, because just the processing fees will be thousands of dollars a month as you scale. And you're like, okay, well, now it's worth it when you go to a more expensive software, but have a lower processing percentage. Man, we've been an hour. Let's go. What is your best advice for 19-year-old going to college for business? I did a video yesterday or 2 days ago about this specifically at GIE. There was a gentleman that was debating going to college versus the business. I would say try to fill your schedule on the weekends and the evenings, then jack your prices up or hire someone else. The second part is harder, hiring someone else while you're in school. So I would really try to focus on weekends, evenings, maybe get 20, 30 customers, and then raise your prices, get them up. Hey, Mike, how do you get the initial set fee price for leaf clamps? Also, how do you charge for plowing and snow removal? We kind of already talked about this a little bit. I read your book, Zero Turn, very informative. Thank you. Thank you. Germany, let's go. Just started my lawn care business last week in San Antonio, Texas. Do you have any advice to get more clients? Watch more of the videos. Lots of info on that. How do you convince a customer to start to choose a small lawn care company instead of a well-known company? Good question. You've got to deliver something that the large company can't, whether it be personal service, because you're on the property all the time, you as the owner, whether it be you answering the phone and being the person that answers the phone and they don't have to wait for 5 minutes on hold or leave a message for someone that's a larger company. That personal touch is typically what's going to get them to you. When you're first starting out, personal touch is going to be the thing that gets customers to you. As you grow and expand, you're going to lose some of those customers because you cannot offer that personal touch. And that's fine. That's fine. You're growing. That's fine. And so you're going to lose some of those customers. And then what's going to happen? You're going to keep growing and growing and growing to the point it's like, okay, I don't want customers to have my personal number. I don't want them to be able to contact me. And you almost flip to the opposite side of the spectrum, which is you don't want the customer having personal contact. Then as the company gets really big, you actually go back to being, hey, we need to appear like we're more of a personal company. And we are going to, make sure that is the impression, the branding that we're giving. So with Augusta Lawn Care, for example, we are actually, you'll see in the next couple weeks, we're adding a banner on all of our locations' websites saying locally owned and operated, like a badge, because we want to make sure it's very clear. Hey, yes, we are a chain, but or a franchise, and we have 60 plus locations all over the place, but each of these locations is owned by one person and like family owned and operated. That's a big deal. So you kind of switch back and forth. At first you're trying to be all professional, and then you're like, oh, actually I want to still actually be personable. It's funny. My other question is, I only have one vehicle to go mowing in, which recently broke down and put me out for a week. Will not have the money to get another vehicle. What would be a good contingency plan to prevent losing work if this happens? I would have a cheap truck that is your backup truck, but still runs. So you might only use it occasionally, but it's got to be really cheap. That's the only time. That's why people are like, I got to buy new all the time. It's like, look, if I have 15 vehicles, I don't think 5 of them are going to break down at the same time. I just need to have 1 or 2 backups. And if they're all cheap, that's fine. I don't mind. I'd much rather buy cheaper trucks and have a couple backups when I have 15 vehicles and a couple of them go down. It's like, okay, great. Pull the replacements in while those are in the shop for the week, right? It's not a big a deal. Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. Hey, Mike, stupid question. You took the strategy of purchasing an Anytime Fitness to learn the franchising process. Would you encourage someone to purchase one of your franchise to learn the process? I think so. Yeah, I think that'd be a good move. Yeah, I think it'd be a good move. That's a good question. Yeah, just to learn the systems and procedures. Yeah, like if someone did that and they could sell it, we're going to be in the next few months offering where people can buy franchises. Because one of our locations is wanting to move and they need to move their location. They're wanting to sell their existing one. So we're going to have it where they can sell franchises that are already operating. And so, that'd be a great thing, buy in and build it, grow it up, and then potentially just sell it, right? And then use those skills and the things that we use. That'd be a good move. Smart. I'm working by myself and looking for employees. Demand is insanely high. Waiting times up to 3 months. I'm the only P4P and many employees won't move over to me. How do I combine work and hiring? Okay, I see what you're saying. The waiting times for you to get work done is 3 months. You're trying to find employees. Okay, if you have 3 months backlog, I would raise your prices. Even if you had to tell customers that are on the books, like on the schedule, like, hey, your price is going XYZ up because cost of labor is going up, cost of fuel is going up. We have to raise prices. You're going to lose a couple of them, but guess what? You have 3 months booked out. And all your existing recurring customers, I did the same thing on. And then you would raise your base pay to attract. The base pay on P4P attracts employees. I don't want them to hit base pay. I want them to make more. I just can't advertise that they make $23, $24 an hour. I've got to say, hey, your base pay is 18, plus you're getting bonuses every paycheck based upon your performance and how much revenue you bring to the business, because you get a percentage of it. That's an easy way to simply share that with them. But I would say raise your prices. If you're 3 months booked out, please, please, please raise your prices, because you're losing some customers already due to the fact that you're 3 months booked out. So why not raise your prices, reduce your backlog, because not as many people will accept, but then still get the jobs that need the work done within the next 4 to 6 weeks. So that would be my 2 cents. A company is trying to sell us recurring customers for $1,300 per. I've watched your customer acquisition cost video and know that's a ridiculous price, because our own CAC, customer acquisition cost, is $160. I don't know what to offer. I would just let them sit there. I would offer them something and say, hey, look, I don't see the value of what you're offering. Here's what I can offer. Maybe you do $300 per customer, and then you step back and you just let them do their thing. And they're going to probably find that no one else is willing to pay that price, because if anyone pays $1,300 per recurring mowing customer, unless they're like massive contracts, is a few bricks shy of a load. Mike, will you be doing more zero turn episodes? I have enjoyed them a lot. I have watched them all many times. I hope so. It's just that time doesn't, time is not. Whoa. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. What happened there? That was crazy. Make sure everything's back on here. Whoa now. Okay. Will you be doing more zero turn episodes? I would like to. They do really well on YouTube, and I know it helps a lot of people because it gives a lot of variety. But honestly, when I'm traveling, I'd rather be doing it with the franchisees just to be able to help them. So for now, no. But down the road, potentially, I would try to knock out a few of those episodes. And we do our team now with media is great. Like, we would do some amazing zero turn episodes. I really do believe that. I'd probably bring multiple cameras instead of just the one, and we'd do an amazing job. We would. But it's just the time element right now we're struggling with that. Hey, Mike, I've been watching since I started my company. Since I started at the wrong time of year, haven't really had any leads. Any suggestions? I would make sure everything's locked down. You have everything ready to go for spring rush, when leads will start coming because demand will increase. Do you quote year-round contracts the same as you quote a commercial property? How do I figure out if I'm hitting per man-hour rate on a residential property that has a fixed monthly cost? Every single of the services on a contract needs to have budget hours. So that way you can tweak the contract based upon each type of service. Not be like, oh man, we spent 1,080 hours on that job, on that contract last year, and we only budgeted for 720. Well, do we just raise the price? No, you got to figure out which service was going over. Was it the mowing we were going over all the time? Was it the leaf cleanups? Was it fertilization? Like, what part of the contract was going over? So that's why you got to break down each part of the contract by service and by the visit in terms of budget hours. Will you create the next Dogecoin with your mascot? Oh, that is such a cool... I've never even observed that. Max kind of looks like a Dogecoin guy. Let's go. We'll call it the Max coin. To the moon. Oh, it's great. I love it. Hey, Mike, do you set up Google Ads, or do you have any content how to set up Google Ads? Yes, there's some in landscapebusinesscourse.com, but we don't do it currently for anyone in terms of cost. We just have it for the franchisees. They can follow the tutorials and things. How many days a week? How many hours a day did you work when you first started out? Way too many. Probably aged like 3 years in my first year. I'll answer it more honestly. Sorry. First year, I was part-time, but when I went full-time, I was working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and plus like out in the field, and then doing the office work, and then doing school. So it was a lot. Hey, Mike, you think I mow year-round in Maryland? I doubt it. No. Hey, Mike, hello from Belgium. Belgium, let's go. Do you plan to expand your business in Europe, or do you plan to stay in the U.S., having franchisees in Europe? Eventually, yes, but we've got to get it past 1,000 before I even start considering Europe, to be perfectly honest. Australia would probably be my first move, and then Europe, but we'll see. It's all down the road. I listened to you yesterday about trusting employees. That's why I'm not more move from where I'm at right now. I'm going to trust and start hiring. Very good. Between large companies and small companies, you have to show what set you apart from other companies? I'm a 23-year-old entrepreneur, just started lawn care a month ago, and mostly intended to help out those who lost their jobs during this pandemic. But I kept on having low-balling customers. I don't see any question. Okay, that's fine. Do you have any locations in Kansas City? Not currently. How do you calculate how much floating capital you keep on hand at any one time? This is going to depend on your risk tolerance, where you're at in life. If you have a dependence, you're going to want more. If you have fixed costs like mortgages and loans that you got to pay on, and student loans and things like that, you're going to need a higher amount of floating, as you call it, capital, working capital. But the lower that is, typically the more you can invest in the business and grow faster. So it's just a balancing based on everyone's own circumstances. Winter work for the Northeast. You can definitely do snow. It's very lucrative when there's snow on the ground, but I'd be focusing on winter services when there's not, bush trimming, etc. Is starting business better franchising a business? What? Is starting business better franchising a business? I don't know what you're saying there. I don't know if you're talking about franchises versus starting independently. I talk a lot about that at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/franchise. If franchising is even right for you. For some people it is, for some people it's not. Does P4P encourage employees to cut corners to complete more properties? Theoretically, it does, because it is the quantity element is like, hey, you get paid more the more work you get done. The quality element is if you make a yellow slip or a callback, you're going back to that property and fixing it without any more revenue being produced for the business. Therefore, you as the employer are not making any more money on that part. Obviously, we're going to make sure they're making base pay for all the time they're clocked in throughout their pay period. That's obvious, but they're not making any more performance dollars if they're going back to that property. So that's the balance. And same with the damage cases. If they make damages and they're making tons of money because they're going so fast, their performance dollars or the things above base pay are on the table for us to take if there's negligence and they're damaging things because they're trying to go so fast. People that are wanting more work, Facebook ads. I put one ad on there for a leaf removal. Already got 3 leaf removals. Awesome. Hey, Mike, do you think what do you think about the Island Boys? I do not know what the Island Boys are. Some get to know the pro episodes would be awesome. I heard you got some good leads. Oh, John. Yeah, I haven't been able to follow up yet, John. I promise I'll try. Yard sale, Facebook ads. They work. Let's go. Yep. Buy the service. Hey, Mike from India. Whoa, we got India, Belgium, Germany, and South Africa. Let's go. And probably Australia. I know there's a few of them. I've seen their names. Really need to follow your steps to grow my business, but stuck with the same position. Really need your help to grow my business. Okay, is there any question? Krista, I just recommend watching as many of the videos as possible. I've made almost 1,000 videos now, and I think if someone watched all 1,000 of those, they could really start a good business. I really believe that. I found out if you are really cheap on your prices, customers will not take you serious as a company. That is somewhat correct. Let's see here. I'll buy $100 in coin. Let's go. The max coin. Get on board the rocket. How early on in a business would you recommend switching to a salary while letting the business pay insurance, gas, phone bill, etc.? Typically, when you're going to switch to an S-Corp is when that's going to become a value. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. 200 letters on the max. Should I take a break for a few days? Should I take a break for a few days with work and do application interviews for new employees? Or should I do work 3 to 4 days and 2 to 3 days hiring? I think you're overthinking it. I honestly really do. I'll be perfectly honest, 200 letters are the max. Man, characters. Gotcha. Okay, good. This is the question from before. Okay, got it. Should I take a break for a few days with work and do application interviews for employees? Or gotcha. Okay, try to do interviews in the evenings or on the weekends, right? Because I know what it is. You're running behind on the work. I don't want to create more pressure by saying, oh yeah, just stop working for a few days. That's going to create all sorts of scheduling issues and pressure. Try to schedule a bunch of interviews back to back in the evenings or on the weekend, like a Saturday at Starbucks or something if you don't have an office. When did I start my lawn care business? 8 years ago, 9 years ago, something like that. Don't let money turn you toxic. Getting a little cocky, Mike. Getting a little cocky? Come on now. Cocky? Nope, not year-round in Maryland, April and November. I meant to say is it bad to mow year-round in Maryland? Like mulch leaves maybe once a month. The thing is, you're usually going to get frozen And so you don't like the mulching isn't really effective typically. You're not going to have anything to mulch or mow by February. It's my brother's birthday. Shout him out, Nick Kerr. Let's go. Okay, backwards North Pacific Northwest. I get the point. AV, you can, but it's over in January. Let's see here. Keep going. Hey, Mike, as a solo operator, should I look into a dumper dog and being able to pool my truck? I'm trying to keep my setup all in one. I don't know what a dumper dog is, unfortunately. I'm assuming that is like a bed insert, but a dump trailer would help me out a lot more. Typically, I've found that most of the time, a dump trailer is better because you're able to unhook it and use the truck for other stuff. But typically the cost is about the same, like putting a dump bed in versus buying the whole dump trailer. And more importantly is typically the wear and tear in your truck is greater if you're hauling all that material in your truck versus a dump trailer. Also, I can get usually a lot more weight in a dump trailer than I can in the back of my truck with the same truck pulling that dump trailer, right? So I typically would favor the dump trailer. Hey, Mike, I have 40 clients down here in South Florida. Every time I'm winter season, I'm forced to work with other companies because I'm not getting enough work with my own company. What should I do? Try to diversify services. Especially when you're solo, I don't mind you diversifying services. Maybe do some pressure washing, gutter cleaning. I'd really, really, really encourage you, though, to try to do winter services where you get your mowing clients to convert into still going bi-weekly, where you do other things for them at the same price. Like, you can get 60-70% of that same revenue during the winter months, especially in Florida, where it's not like you have a long winter season. It's relatively short. So, did you work for another lawn care company before starting your own? Or did you figure out how to do things as you went creating your own business? I did not work for another landscaping company. I tried to actually, and if I would have got the job, I probably wouldn't have started Augusta because I was at the point where like, look, I'm either going to work for this company or I'm going to start my own business. But I ended up starting my own business. Mike, how do you quote mulch? By this, you've got to figure out how many yardage, the cubic yards, and then how many hours it's going to take to install that material. What is the best size trailer to start up? If you have a quarter-ton pickup, you can get like a 5x8 or a 5x10 dump trailer and not need a bigger truck. If you're able to get like a half-ton or a 3/4 ton or a full-ton pickup. Sorry, I don't know why I said the first time. I meant half-ton pickup, like the small ones. If you're gonna like a 5x8 or 5x10 trailer, but if you're gonna get a bigger truck, like a 3/4 ton or a full ton pickup, then you can get a bigger tray, like a 7x14 or a 7x16 and haul more debris in terms of volume and more weight if you're doing like gravel and soil. I noticed that you don't use box trucks in your business. What is the reason for this? Is there a scenario that you think box trucks would be the better choice? Yeah, so I think that box trucks are great. I don't like dualies. There's just more maintenance. I don't particularly like the cost of buying box trucks. And their maintenance is typically a little more expensive. It's hard to find mechanics that work well on them. But again, I'm not opposed to it. If I can find a good deal, one of our franchisees found the U-Haul resale site, and it was a great deal on some of these trucks. I don't care really. Box trucks in our area do less. We don't use them as much because we have debris for grass clippings. If we didn't have debris for grass clippings, I'd probably already be doing vans like the Ram or Ford Transits. Those type of things, I would probably be doing that already if we didn't have to bag clippings as much. As well as the fact that a box truck, it's just, if you're going to, yes, you can haul a trailer for debris like leaf cleanups and branches, but it's nice to be able to throw stuff in the back of a pickup. It's a little more versatile, right? So it comes down to acquisition cost, though. If I can get a really good deal on a box truck, I'd probably be doing it. But I also, as the company scales and grows, you kind of want to standardize everything. So we have pickups for everything right now. If I had to redo it all over, maybe I'd do box trucks and I'd do some sort of an insert that would roll off for like the clippings, or like even if there's a side door, and then you would throw all the clippings inside with tarps, and then you just pull them out. That would potentially be a good idea. But again, it comes down to acquisition cost. In my area, we can't get box trucks for less than double the price of a pickup. So the max comments was 200. Oh, yeah. Haha. So how should we deal with lowballing customers? Previously here in Bangladesh, let's go, is killing the market with low charges. How can I gain trust for higher charge? Yeah. So you've got to really focus on increasing the trust, like you said. So are they showing up in a uniform? Are they have a great website? Do they have someone that answers the phone when people call? All those things are the type of things that you're going to get those higher premium customers that are willing to pay a premium price for premium service. What's the best state currently to start a mowing business? I personally think currently right now, anything on the suburbs in Florida or Texas, but that's just me. If you have a tight service area, getting a U-Haul pickup truck rental is a great alternative for a single truck operator breakdowns, not the box trucks, but the pickup trucks. It's a good idea. Getting a backup as your rental, it'll be a rental truck basically to be your backup if something breaks down. That way you can afford, instead of spending an extra $10,000 to get a better truck, take that $10,000, spend it on marketing, spend it on advertising, spend it on a great website, spend it on employees, and then have a backup being the U-Haul truck. That's okay for a solo operator. Obviously, as you grow, you don't want to be rolling around in a U-Haul truck. I wanted to know, as a solo operator, would it be worth to invest in a dumper dog and be able to, okay, we already talked about this. Jerry, what gear do you recommend for someone new to wear or utilize, such as work boots for lawn, types of gloves, safety goggles, etc.? Honestly, I just do not have an opinion. I got to go, Mike, working. Cool. Thinking of doing P4P. Would I tell my employee how much the job is for, or just set a flat price? Yeah, so you really, in my opinion, this is what the book is all going to be about. P4P is the bottom of the pyramid. Then there's open book management. Then there's profit sharing. You need to have all three, in my opinion, for it to work the best. So if you're going to do P4P, you've got to have at least open book management where you're going to share the prices. You say, hey, here's the prices for the job. $1,000, $600 of that is labor. $400 of that is materials. You get 1/3 of the labor revenue or whatever percentage you're giving. Therefore, $200 is going to be yours at the end of this job. That's open book management. Share all the numbers. They know exactly what's happening. They don't think you're trying to do smoke and mirrors or trying to, do things behind their back. Just be honest. And that's how P4P will work the best. Otherwise, they won't trust you. P4P, it has to operate on trust. And if they don't trust you and you don't trust them, it's not going to work well. What's your opinion on Christmas lights and decorations as a sort of seasonal division to keep numbers up? I'm okay with it. I don't like it from an insurance standpoint, getting guys up on massive ladders and things. In our market, we don't do it. Several of our franchisees do. We just got a preferred vendor for training and price discounts for lights for Augusta Nation. But we personally, in our market, don't do it very much. And it's mostly a liability thing. And because up until Christmas, I can keep them busy with leaf cleanups and fall cleanups. If I could find a light service in January and February, I might be more in wanting to do it because that's when we slow down more. But I can keep people busy pretty much throughout December. So I don't really need the light services to keep us busy. This makes my rainy day awesome. If you guys don't like Mike, then your elevator don't go all the way up. Thank you. Oh, that's so funny. Good Saturday evening. Does anyone know if you have an MHIC license in Maryland to do lawn care? I don't know what an MHIC license is, but you should reach out to Zachary Trigger over at Hartford Lawns. He's in Maryland. He's part of lawn care web design and a great member of the community. He would be a good resource to reach out to. What is your net worth? I honestly don't keep track of it. And on paper, it's totally different versus what's actually in the bank. So maybe I'll do a video on that on my other channel. Hey, Mike, what setup do you recommend for a solo operator? Really depends on your market, what type of jobs and services you're offering. I would try to keep it as lean as possible. So if you're just doing small mowing, probably a ramp rack or a van would be great. If you're trying to do landscaping, probably a 1/4-ton pickup with a 5x10 dump trailer would be great. Just try to keep it as lean as possible. If you're doing those projects and you're a solo operator, you don't need a dump truck. Have the delivery company drop it off at your place. Because as your solo operator, a $4,000 to $5,000 expense on a $50,000 truck could put you under. You don't want that liability. Get a smaller pickup, have people deliver material, deliver equipment to you. It's much more efficient. Would-be Island, let's go. Hey, Mike, what is a good average to abide by when considering adding another crew and truck member, i.e., current one truck, one crew generating $80,000 to $100,000 in revenue? How much revenue should you hit first? I would make it to where you need one truck, one crew. I would have it to where you max out the number of employees in the truck before you buy the asset, right? So again, if you're having 2 people in a truck, maybe you had a 3rd person for a few weeks while you're still growing. And then it becomes very apparent that hey, I can almost fill this one person's schedule if I buy another truck completely. I just don't want you to buy the truck too soon and then have it where that truck is sitting idle for 3 or 4 days a week. Christo, not yet. We'll get there. Europe, Australia, India. We'll get there. Well, we need at least 1,000 in the US first. We're working on it. How about giving someone a 1099 that works for you? There's your question. How do you go about giving somebody a 1099 that works for you? There's a question. Yeah, I kind of talked about this before, the requirements for being a 1099. You should be able to run a 1099 through pretty much any payroll software, just like you would a W-2. What do you think about the Toro Multi-Force mow? I think it's really cool. I've never used one. I don't really know the numbers of it. I don't like how expensive the implements are, and I think people overemphasize how much time it saves them because they only use it for several times in a month. So it just takes a long time to recoup $3,000-$4,000 if you're paying that for an implement, or $2,000. Like, that's a lot of labor. So you better be using it a lot. Like, well, it saves 20% of my time. Great. Let's say you use it for 100 hours, that implement, right? So $2,000 for this implement, and it's going to cost, and I'm going to use it for 100 hours. Okay. That's $20 an hour. It's going to take you at least 2 years to recoup the cost of that equipment. It's a long time. And then the question, well, in the last 5 years, because if it doesn't, that means I won't even double my investment on that money. So you got to really run the numbers on that. I think it's definitely a cool piece of equipment, though. Did you ever invest in Home Advisor or Angie's List? We have. No, I'm not a huge fan. To get started, get momentum, yes, but down the road, you don't want to be dependent on it. Can you elaborate a bit on your MBA course? Yeah, in the description, there's an MBA course. It is basically everything I learned in school. I actually use a lot of my books and a lot of the stuff that I went through in my MBA course, and I basically put it for small business owners, things that are actually applicable to small business. So we talk about finding a good CPA, finding a lawyer, finding what's an LLC, S-Corp, different tax stuff, how to create a marketing plan, how to create a business plan, how to go get a loan, how to find the right bank officer, like all the stuff you need for a small business. Because in the MBA, 95% of it, you don't really need to know for small business. My goal with the MBA for entrepreneurs is like, what do you need to start a business? Finding good partners, finding good employees, creating incentive programs and plans. All that stuff is what we cover in the MBA course. I have a box trucks, use 95 gallons rolling dumpsters for yard waste. City picks them up behind my house for free. Wowzers. Trousers, you must have a lot of 95-gallon dumpsters. Okay. When you started your business, did you integrate QuickBooks with your lawn care CRM, or did you do your bookkeeping separate? We did it separate. I'm not a huge fan of syncing with a CRM, my QuickBooks, because I've just seen too many people have too many problems. To rent a U-Haul truck for a month to run your business is a poor decision. That's about $500 a month. You would be better off finding a decent used truck. I agree with you, Daryl. I think what his point was is if it was like a day, right? So if a truck went down for a day or two, you could just go get a U-Haul if you were solo. I think that's what his point was. How would you change from 4-man crew to 2-man crews and from hourly to P for P? 4-man crew to 2-man crew, I would simply buy another setup. You'd split them up, right? Assuming that you have enough work for all of them. So you'd probably be able to increase your production or your capacity by 15 to 20%, then split your crews and be able to get the work done without having to hire any more people. You'd be literally able to get 15% more work done. And then switching from hourly to P for P is a 3-step process. We talk about it in landscapebusinesscourse.com. You basically want to show it to the crew, you first want to run the numbers on the back end and know your numbers. Then secondarily, then you got to present it to the team and run a trial period for 2 pay periods. Then the third step is vote and implement. So that's all in landscapebusinesscourse.com. Let's go, Brandon. How do you think about? I talked about this. What was your step? What was I set up when you first started? Also, how did you do landscape jobs as a solo operator? Yeah, so as a solo operator for landscape jobs, you want as much stuff being delivered to you as possible, materials and the equipment when you rent it, all of that stuff. You don't want to own equipment. You want to rent it at that point because you're not going to be able to use it enough to actually make sense. Again, a solo operator buying a $2,000 piece of equipment, you better make sure you're using that thing like all day for months on end because the hours just don't make sense otherwise, right? So again, let's go back to the example. If I am paying someone $20 an hour and I have a $2,000 piece of equipment, it means I need to use it for 100 hours for it to equate, right? So if I'm only going to use it for a couple weeks, or like a tree chipper, I use it. We used to use it like once a week or once a month. It's not worth having it around. And then in terms of my first setup, I had a Ram 1500, which we still have today, P1, and then a 6x12 enclosed trailer, which we sold off because now we're going trailerless. But that was how I started out. What are your plans for the future? We got to get Augusta Nation franchise to over 1,000 locations. That is the plans right now. And it is possible. Don't tell me it's not possible. We're going to make it happen. And I think when we hit that, when we get 500, we'll have a little bit of sway in the industry. P4P will become the standard. A lot of stuff I talk about with open book management and the way that we talk about culture will start to become the norm. When we hit 1,000, it'll become like you have to do it or you will go out of business. And I want that. I want people to have to treat their employees right, be on P4P. I want it to be where people can make more money if they work their butts off in this industry, and P4P will do that. Open book management will allow companies and the employees to make more money. Profit sharing will allow the owners to not run around like a chicken without a head, because they have buy-in from their employees. And I believe it's going to be better for the employees, better for the owners, better for this industry. And I think at 1,000 locations, it'll be extremely apparent that that is the way to run a business. So we're on our way. We're going to get there. How do you tell a customer you can't charge so cheap? Man, we've done this 90 minutes. Let's go. How do you tell a customer you can't charge so cheap on an estimate when the customers are elderly and unemployment because of the virus? Ooh, that's tough. Man, I think you just got to determine is this a business transaction or is this a charitable transaction? And if you want to give them something, do it. Just know it's charitable. Don't try to run a business and a charity at the same time. Never works. The charity doesn't do well because eventually you go to business and you can't be charitable, and the business doesn't do well because you don't make a profit. So determine: am I going to do this for free or like a discounted price and do a charitable act, or is this a business move? And if you can't afford the charity, stick with the business. All right, because the business needs to survive in order for charity to work. You've got to make money if you're going to be charitable. People can scream at me all they want about me making a bunch of money, because I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a ton of money. And I need that to be able to be charitable. I cannot go be charitable without money. And so I would focus on your business arm first. And then as time goes on, you have the opportunity to be charitable without putting the business at risk, if that makes sense. Leonard, Sebastian, it really depends if you have a trailer or ramp rack for your solo operator. I would say the question would actually be more, in this case, probably like enclosed box truck and van versus the ramp rack, right? That would probably be the better question. If one prevent the knock bait with chainsaw push down, okay? When Augusta Lawn Care reaches 1,000 locations, do you have plans for an IPO release? We're going to see. I do want to eventually take everything I'm doing public, right? So everything that we're doing, software and everything, I eventually want to take public because I want to be able to have the franchisees participate in the growth and own equity, as well as people that work for Augusta for a long time, like Liz, Lee, etc. I want them to be able to participate in the monetary standpoint. Look, I want to make a bunch of money, but it's not going to change the way I live. So like I'm driving a Honda Accord and I live in a closet. So like I'm not going to change what I do. I need the money to do other stuff that I want to be able to give. But I also want people that work for me and franchisees that joined at the first 10, like they are going to get options if we ever went public. Now, what I have to determine though is taking it public going to be the right thing for the business and for the franchisees in the future? And I do not want to give away too much control. And so if we were ever go public, I would have to retain control. And there's ways to do that with preferred shares and things like that. So down the road, potentially, yes. I think if we cross 1,000 locations and the software was where we want it to be, that's when it becomes something would be really cool to have public. And I'd like to have our franchisees participate as we keep growing and we actually become profitable. And like if we ever went public, it's way easier on the stock exchange to be able to share public options and things like that. So I'd like to do that. I would. Do you think the used work truck madness will ever end? Yeah, I think so. Eventually chip shortages will be eliminated. Do you plan? It's classic supply and demand. Like we're gonna have a glut of chips in probably 2 years. Like that's what happens right now. They're all ramping up production, but the supply chain is usually 12 to 18 months behind current consumption, right? So what's happening right now? They're all ramping up, and we'll see that in 12 to 18 months, and we'll actually have too many chips, in my opinion. I wouldn't say too many because like production is gonna go up too, but it's not gonna be like it is now. Do you plan on selling your business in the future or just continue growing it to its potential? I'll never sell Augusta, if that's what you're asking. My other businesses, I'm selling the gym to one of the trainers, but I don't really plan on selling other stuff. How do you feel about the World Series being hosted in Atlanta after? Okay, I don't have an opinion on that. If you started out with a 6x12 enclosed, how did you do spring fall cleanups when you first started out? Yeah, really bad. Literally throwing all the debris in the enclosed trailer, driving the dump, then pulling it all out. It was really bad. I did not know what I was doing. It was bad news. Where do you believe you would make more profit? Solo or two-man crews using ramp racks? You're going to always make more profit solo from a per capita standpoint, but from a dollar amount of profit, two-man crew. It's just the percentage is going to be lower, but profit in dollars would be higher with two-man crews. As a solo operator, I truly believe you must have multiple trucks, trailers, equipment, etc. If one truck goes down, you can still work. If a trailer goes down or gets hit, you can still work. I think I would agree with this to some extent. I would say though that you've probably been doing it for a long time, and so you've been able to kind of keep the money aside and then buy a second truck, buy a second trailer. For someone just starting out, the capital that they do have is going to be better spent getting more customers and having rentals be the backup. But as time goes on, you're 100% right, Daryl. If you have that, really good profit machine, it is nice to have a second backup of trucks and equipment, etc. Do you think you learn more about business by going to college or starting one? I think you learn more starting one, unless you want to start a really, really big company or you want to be an executive. Then an MBA or a business degree might help. Okay, guys, I'm going to log off. It's been 95 minutes. I really appreciate y'all hopping on here. Really, really do. I appreciate everyone on lawn care web design. Really do. There's 50-something companies now that do your website. I really appreciate it. It allows us to do a lot of stuff here. We're going to be launching something next week. Again, really a tribute to everyone that supports the channel. Landscapebusinesscourse.com, lawncaremedia.com. And next week, we're going to be launching another thing that's going to be really helpful, I think, for a lot of business owners in the lawn care and landscaping industry, and was really confirmed by what I experienced at GIE with so many people's questions, that we need to know our numbers and we need to have better accountability and accounting. So next week, we're going to be launching a product. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys, for hopping here on a Saturday. I appreciate all your questions, and we'll see you soon.